Okay, everybody, we're here. We're live. For everybody that just joined, thank you for tuning in. This is actually my first time doing one of these on YouTube. Obviously, with the censorship going on and a lot of the, I don't want to say more known platforms because nothing's, YouTube's the second largest, search engine like in the world. But, with Facebook, Instagram, cracking down a bit, we're going to start doing a lot more stuff from these platforms right here. Um, Very briefly, obviously, everybody that's coming in, y'all guys may and women may know a lot more about Facebook, YouTube chats and super chats and all that other stuff. Whichever ways you want to support, subscribing, thumbs up, uh, whatever, do that. If the thing that will help boost this out to as many people as possible, if you're here, make sure that you chat. We will have room for actual questions, but we want the brothers to be able to get in and share their perspective very quickly, so we're not consuming too much time in the question world and perspective. I do want everyone to comment their perspective on the things being said in real time. And so that to the people that don't know, my name is Maj Toure. I'm the founder of Black Guns Matter. We have two very, very solid guys that I like a lot. Full disclosure, and I think this is very important. Both of these gentlemen have helped our organization, Black Guns Matter, over the last year or so. Rob a little bit longer in that regard, because I knew Rob longer. I think that if I don't give that full disclosure of me knowing both of these gentlemen and the ways that they have helped our organization, it could be biased. Justin, being a younger senior, is the Black Guns Matter official ammo sponsor, which means like the rounds of stuff that are like gold nowadays, Justin has given us that. So we thank him for that. Rob has been supportive of Black Guns Matter for years. If I've asked him to come out to an event, give me some information, some advice, things of that nature, even in areas where I completely disagreed initially, or maybe later, or maintain that disagreement, he's been there in that regard. So I think we're going to have a very, very passionate. There has been no me telling these gentlemen what they are allowed to say or not allowed to say. I think that obviously these guys know that they are being tremendously looked at right now for their perspectives. And, I can't tell grown men what to say and what not to do, and I would never attempt to. So with that being the case, I would like Justin to introduce himself. Then Rob will introduce himself. Then we'll get into the crux of it, and then everybody can kind of like take a stab at the perspective. So, Justin, can you just reach out and let everybody know exactly who you are, what you do, and then Rob after?
Sure. My name is Justin Nazaroff. I'm the majority owner and the general manager of Fenix Ammunition Company in Novi, Michigan. We have been producing high-quality ammunition since 2016. Previous to 2020, our primary markets were competitive shooting and tactical training. Obviously, since then, things have changed a lot in the landscape of ammunition and firearms purchasing and ownership. So now we're kind of all things to all people. But we feel that we're a Second Amendment absolutist, a single issue type company. And we're trying to set ourselves apart by servicing primarily the people who the Second Amendment was written for, namely the citizens. And that's been met with some success and some interesting conversations along the way.
Okay, perfect. Rob, can you tell everybody who you are, what you do, and then we can get right into it?
Yeah, Rob Pincus. I am the Executive Vice President of Second Amendment Organization, and because we're primarily dealing with gun rights issues and gun rights advocacy, which is what 2AO focuses on, that's really the hat that I'm wearing primarily tonight. I also am the Executive Director of Personal Defense Network. I've been in the industry, I always say, since 1997. That was my first formal entry in the industry, SHOT Show and all that. I'm a part owner of a firearms manufacturing company who's trying to launch a new, uniquely designed firearm. I've written for a bunch of magazines, done a bunch of TV shows, published a bunch of books. I wrote the live fire curriculum for the United States Concealed Carry Association. And like I said, been involved in advocacy and especially outreach advocacy across the aisle, if you will, bringing new people into the gun community and dealing with the people outside the gun community who try to cut us off at the knees and obviously trying to restrict our rights for the better part of 2 decades.
Okay. So to the people that just came in, we're here tonight because there's been a question, a statement that Justin has tweeted out from his company. And I'm going to paraphrase just for time references, but please make sure that you're following both of these gentlemen across all of the social media platforms that they are on. And I don't want anybody to take my paraphrasing as snipping somebody or, misrepresenting what they're saying. So this is a paraphrase. In essence, Fenix Ammo takes the position that, if you are going to their website to purchase, ammunition, there's a little box that you check saying, whether you did not or did vote for Joe Biden. Justin put out a tweet saying like, hey, people have been asking us about this actual position. Are we serious? Yes. And he gave a great breakdown. And I suggest everyone go to both of these gentlemen's social media platforms, follow, agree, disagree, whatever. And that caused a bit of controversy. And the controversy was, in essence, do we think that so-called segmenting the new Second Amendment or gun owner department, do we think that that's a good thing? And the title, do we think that Biden supporters or Biden voters should deserve ammo is a bit of a title, but I think it's a little bit more nuanced than that. So in essence today, both of these gentlemen, who have obviously have completely different perspectives or viewpoints on it, are in essence going to be presenting why they think that is a good position for the Second Amendment community and why we think this is not a good position for the Second Amendment community. So Justin, can you jump in, give the breakdown, give the perspective and your point of view?
Sure. So to be honest with you, our perspective is pretty simple. That is, we're a private company and we shouldn't feel the need to do business with people that ultimately voted for a president that, if he achieves even 50% of what he's telling us that he's looking to achieve, it would effectively bankrupt our company and many others in the industry. And I have 7 employees who feed their families based on this company. And we just don't see the need to cater to people who, as I said, voted for a president who's very clear about what he plans to do with the gun industry. So post-election, I decided to modify our terms of service a bit, and I added a provision that says I agree that I did not vote for Joe Biden. And it's actually was up on the site for several weeks, but we did a big sale last Thursday. I got a phone call from a young lady that was looking to purchase our product and was a bit confused and said, I did vote for Joe Biden, so what do I do? And I said, I'm sorry, ma'am, but we're not sure that we want your money, and here's why. And I explained to her exactly what provisions of his plan, really all of them, I have a problem with, but specifically, he wants to ban the online sale of ammunition. That's what our company is built on. And I told her, I'm in a position where I don't have to take your money right now. You have a lot of other choices in the market. I'm certainly not shutting you out of exercising your Second Amendment right. But if you are a new gun owner especially, and you're still voting for people that ultimately are going to take this away from you, you need to understand what the ramifications of that are. And it was actually a pretty good conversation. We spoke for about 45 minutes. I didn't change her mind. She certainly wasn't going to change my mind, but I tried to point her in the direction of information as best I could. And that's when I decided to make the post on Twitter, make sure that people fully understood exactly the rationale behind our decision. We don't feel that it's discriminatory in any way. We're not telling people of a particular race, color, religion, etc., that the Second Amendment is not for them, because that's not true. What we are saying is, if you are actively supporting politicians who are actively and overtly stating that they plan to basically eliminate the Second Amendment short of a full repeal, then we don't have any interest in doing business with you, and we're not sure why anybody would think that we should.
Okay, Rob. So again, to everybody that's just jumping in, Justin, owner and manager of Fenix Ammo, takes the position that, hey, if you're a Biden voter, we're open to educating you, but right now we got to at least have that conversation. But if so, we do not support giving ammo, pun or literally or figuratively, to someone that's actively in support of a presidential candidate or now a president that in essence would attempt to bankrupt the companies that are selling ammo. Rob disagrees with that, and I want to make sure that we're very clear. This me giving a recap of each one of these gentlemen's perspective is for the new people flowing in as we're talking right now. So Rob Pincus obviously disagrees with that. Rob, what is your perspective? How you saw it, and where you're currently at in that regard?
Yeah, and just to clarify, I don't disagree with Phoenix Ammunition's right to choose its customers, right? In fact, Maj and I have had this debate in public over the last few weeks over big tech having the right to choose their customers, and a separate debate. But the idea is, like, I've been reminding people to go read their Atlas Shrugged for several weeks, right? Private businesses should be able to choose their customers, their influence, their policies, and I would go all the way as an extremist, as an extreme entrepreneurial, capitalist, independent libertarian. If you wanted to be racist with your business policies, be racist. I think you would die. I don't think your business is going to survive. I think you might get a little marketing play out of it. I think of the Rains in Arkansas several years ago that got a big marketing play out of banning Muslims. That bigotry backfired, I think, for our community. It hurt our community. This isn't bigotry, right? This is thought discrimination. This is a more subtle and I think more insidious form of discrimination when you tell people that, I don't like the way you think, so I'm going to not be associated with you. Now, again, that's the prerogative of a private business. I want to choose I don't want the government telling me who I have to train. I don't want the government telling me who I have to sell a gun to. But when it comes to selling a gun, and when it comes to training people for personal defense, I believe in civil rights and human rights to a degree that goes beyond my ego and beyond my ethos, if you will, in terms of my private beliefs, right? I believe first and foremost in this right that we have to self-preservation. And as an advocate for that right, what I don't want to do is suggest that some tens of millions of American citizens have forfeited their right to exercise the Second Amendment and be part of our industry, part of our community, because of the way they voted, particularly because I recognize that voting for the vast majority of human beings is not a single issue thing. So on the one hand, I think, okay, I love the education part, right? First of all, I love the freedom in entrepreneurialism. Yeah, good, that's awesome. Where I really got involved in this debate was when I started seeing people sharing this idea and celebrating. Yeah, we should all do this. Let's pay them back because their cancel culture is hurting us. Let's hurt them back with our cancel culture. And I thought, man, this is toxic and this is doing us a disservice. And when I started to see how people outside of the gun community were pointing fingers, and I resent the fact that the gun community, I'm a diehard libertarian, moderate independent, right? Socially pretty liberal, pretty conservative when it comes to financial policy, obviously gun rights, wrong defense, all that stuff, fiscal policy. But I think it's important to understand that I recognize that the vast majority of our country looks at the gun community as conservative. So when you see articles being written that say, look at these, hypocritical, when the word hypocrisy is tied to my community, because conservatives who are complaining about cancel culture initiate cancel culture as a retribution, that's when I got involved. And I started reaching out to people, why are you sharing this? Why are you celebrating this? Right? And then, of course, we got back in our little Twitter back and forth, as Justin and I are prone to do over the last year. But there's a deeper issue here. It's not the individual business. It's the celebration of the position that because you voted for somebody, I don't want you to be part of this community. And yeah, I get it. I think if the question had been, are you pro-gun? Do you support Biden's policy? We wouldn't be having this conversation. But this is about who somebody voted for, and there are a lot of reasons to vote for somebody, not just gun.
So I want to jump in real quick. Obviously, Justin, I want to give you a chance to rebut against Rob's perspective and add another one, and then one back more for Rob, and then we'll move on to the next question. But again, everybody that's on the side, I want to make sure that you guys are sharing this. I want to make sure that you're commenting. You're also asking questions. I'm taking a few notes on some of the questions going on the side. Justin, what's your rebuttal to Rob's position there? Is he getting it right, your perspective? Is he getting it right, even regardless of your perspective of his question or thinking that it's dangerous for other people to support the perspective that you have in that regard?
No, I don't think he's getting it right at all, to be honest with you. I don't think this has anything to do with cancel culture. First of all, we're not in a position to exercise that kind of power over anybody. We're one business in a very large industry. We're not Disney, we're not Netflix, we're not Facebook. We don't have a monopoly over the Second Amendment. If people are unhappy about the decision we've made, they're perfectly, that they can go buy it somewhere else. So I don't think it's a matter of cancel culture. But I would say my answer to that would be, my answer to the general opinion that we should be catering to people that voted for Joe Biden is, would a colonist in 1775 be obligated to make a musket and sell it to their Tory neighbor, knowing full well that they would support the British over the colonists? And of course, the answer to that would be no. So you could argue that people may have voted for Biden because they had other priorities, but then I would posit that they really aren't part of the gun community. So in order to be a community, you have to have, the very definition in the dictionary of a community is one of many, is a group of people with a shared set of principles or values. And we don't feel that people who voted for Joe Biden and ultimately voted for his gun control plan, because you can't separate the two, we don't feel that they are part of what I see as our community. What we're interested in is quality over quantity. We want people who are going to be willing to draw a line in the sand and say, you know what, if Biden decides to pass an AR-15 ban, we're going to strap them up and walk through the streets and tell the government no, and put them in a position where they have to make a choice over whether they're going to get rash with the citizenry over something as simple as a basic piece of human technology. And at some point that has to be done. I just don't understand why I should feel obligated to do business with somebody who, again, voted for a candidate that is spelling. We're not reading between the lines here. If you haven't read his gun safety plan. So I would also say that we are reaching probably hundreds of thousands of people right now, potentially Biden voters, potentially people that voted third party or stayed home, or maybe voted for Trump but really had no idea what Biden's gun control plan looked like. So those people right now are going to our website, and if they select yes, that they did vote for Joe Biden, our website redirects them directly to Joe Biden's website where they can read his gun control plan. We're probably redirecting more people to his site right now than all of his campaign ads as far as the gun topic specifically. So our message is getting heard, and if a Biden voter goes to our website and clicks yes and reads Joe Biden's gun control plan and says, you know what, I'm okay with Joe Biden's gun control plan. I don't have a problem turning in my 15-round magazine. I don't have a problem having to get a background check and register all my AR-15s as NFA items. If that's truly, if they feel that there are other priorities that they need to vote for that are over and on top of those specific things, then our position is, well, that's fine, but our business, our company, our employees, myself as the owner, we're all together in the position that we're a Second Amendment company. We believe it's a right that belongs to the people, should not be infringed upon, certainly no more so than it already has been. And we're okay with excluding those people because we don't really feel that they understand the purpose behind the community. And that's really what has to happen. They have to understand that owning a firearm is more than just owning the firearm. It's about the principles behind it. And if they can honestly say that they don't believe that, they believe that the government should tell them how best to protect their family because there's other issues that they care about more, that's fair, but there aren't any issues that we care about more as a company, and myself personally. So they're free to make that choice, and we're free to make our choice.
Okay, shouts to the super chat that came in. Listen, guys, everybody that wants to do a super chat, you absolutely can. Do the super chat, $5, $10. Some of you rich dudes that want to do like $100, absolutely. Well, thank you for that. So in essence, Justin's position is this isn't cancel culture. This is us saying, hey, you clearly may be misinformed about what that actual gun control plan by Joe Biden is. Here you are, and I think in essence, and again, I'm paraphrasing. Everybody, don't beat me up too much. I think we're not trying to cancel you. We're trying to educate you. And if you decide to be educated and still come this way, then cool. If not, then there's plenty of other people to spend money there. Rob, do you have a perspective on that? Do you agree? Do you think it is cancel culture? Do you think it's just Justin saying this now? What is the meat and potatoes of that position in that regard?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the reason that I got involved in the conversation in the first place, was to remind people that this is great for Justin and for his company and the ammo that he's going to put into the market and the people he's going to influence. That's great for him. But it's not great for our community. It's not great for Second Amendment advocacy. It's certainly not great for the fact that we need to be recruiting and welcoming in as much as we can these people that are saying in their brain somehow, right, that they don't believe the Democrats are going to enact control. They're going to vote for them because of healthcare, immigration, abortion freedom, drug freedom, like whatever their thing is, or because they didn't like Trump. Right? As many people voted for Trump that didn't like Hillary, like we know this works this way, right? There's a whole bunch of reasons somebody might have voted for Biden, holding their nose on the gun control or holding their nose on immigration or who knows what. I think that conversation is important, that nuanced conversation. Again, if the question was, do you support gun control? Do you support AR-15 bans? Do you support magazine capacity bans? And then you have an educational process from there. I think that's super cool. I love the idea of capitalism education, capitalism advocacy. That's brilliant. What I don't like is the sort of simplistic concept that if you voted for Biden, you are trying to bankrupt my company. Like that doesn't even resonate with 99.999% of the people that voted for Biden, would be my guess, right? Now, people in the comments, I really do appreciate a lot of the stuff that's being said down there. Obviously, Rhonda Marie with the super chat, I think she's expressing what a lot of people are expressing, right? Like, I get what he's doing, but I don't know. So I'm just saying, yeah, I've seen it before, right? I've seen this kind of approach before, and I know how it hurts our community in the areas we need to be seen as welcoming, as educational, as advocates, right? And again, it's not for the echo chamber, right? The echo chamber loves it. I get it. Like everybody who thinks this is awesome is probably already a diehard Second Amendment fan. So from a marketing standpoint, it's a great play. From an advocacy and education standpoint, I really don't think it is. I had a conversation earlier. I would ask Justin, what is this Second Amendment absolutist thing? Because, what percentage does Justin think of actual gun owners believe no restrictions, period, zero is the right way? And then the follow-up question for all of them is, are you living that life? Because if you're filling out 4473s and you're not going to the range with your homemade SPR, then you're not living that compromised life. So, to my eyes, 3 decades in the community and over 2 decades in the industry, gun owners aren't about that, right? So who are you really selling ammo to? Trump enacted gun control. I get it. Biden's a bigger threat to the Second Amendment. I'm not saying he's not, right? And for the people asking who I voted for, check the record. I don't talk about who I voted for. I only campaigned for 2 candidates this year, and they were both senators in Georgia, and I was knocking on doors, walking the streets, trying to keep Republicans in control of the Senate. So that's the best evidence you have as far as who I voted for or not. Having said that, what you have to understand is the voting issue being tied to being anti-gun. That's the narrative. That's the false identity politics thing. That's what we got to get away from. We need people who voted for Biden or any other Democrat to help us get gun control either pushed to the side because it's not going to be successful or removed entirely from the Democratic platform. It's only been part of the Democratic platform for 20 or 30 years anyway. It's only been part of the national discussion for 50 years, right? The 60s is when really the earnest gun control started, and we've been winning on the federal level for the most part. Look at concealed carry permits, right? 35 years ago, you couldn't get a permit in Texas. There was 1 state that had constitutional carry. As of this week, there's 17 now that have constitutional carry.
So, Justin, what is your perspective on what Rob's saying? Because I want to make sure that we're giving each person equal amount of time. Justin, what do you have to say in regards to that? Do you think Rob has it right or wrong in that regard? Or is there room for nuance? And not even going to word it that way. There's always room for nuance, and sometimes somebody's right or somebody's just wrong. What do you think to Rob's perspective on that?
Sure. So I guess I would just going back real quickly to the cancel culture thing. I mean, to be honest with you, I feel like we are defending ourselves against cancel culture. That's exactly what Joe Biden's gun control plan is all about, is effectively canceling companies like ours from being able to do business the way that we do, being able to service customers the way that we service. So I see this as more of a survivalist standpoint than it is anything about cancel culture. But as far as making progress in the gun industry and advancing things like concealed carry, that was a part of the conversation that I had with the woman that I spoke to on the phone, and her position was, well, even if they take my 15-round magazine, so long as I have a 5-shot revolver, then I have the Second Amendment, and my Second Amendment has not been infringed upon. So while concealed carry permits may be up, that's all well and good, but if we get to the point where we're all concealed carrying single-shot Derringers, what do we have? We've lost so many other things along the way. And in this particular issue, yes, there have been plenty of other Democrat presidents that have run on gun control as a secondary topic. But if you watched any of the Democratic debates, they talked about it in basically every debate. And it seemed very clear that they realized they made a major mistake by not taking advantage of the control over the Senate and the House that they had during Obama's presidency. And I don't think that they'll make that mistake again. And it seems obvious. Joe Biden tweeted out yesterday that they're going to move forward with a gun control plan. We're barely a few weeks into his presidency. It's already a hot button issue. They're not waiting for a mass shooting of some kind to make this a big issue. And I just don't believe that Biden voters, I think, I'm not going to put words in Rob's mouth, but I just don't believe the idea that Biden voters are ignorant of what his gun control plan looks like. I think they're very aware. And in fact, the woman I spoke to was fairly aware of some of those provisions and didn't seem to think it was a problem. So while they are a gun owner, right, I don't believe that somebody with that type of mindset is really part of the community. When you have those people in the community, what you get is dilution, right? So again, quantity over quality. We have a lot of new gun owners in this community, but that's why you can get CNN or MSNBC or AP to run a poll that says 80% of gun owners support universal background checks. Who knows where they got those? They certainly didn't poll me. They didn't poll Maj. They didn't poll anybody that I've ever spoken to at a competitive shooting competition or a training class. I suspect that they polled Democrat gun owners. And so while the size of the community is larger, again, the core principles that bind that community have to be untouchable. They have to be something that we can fight for. So all these people around the fringes, folks that bought guns in 2020 because they got scared, those are going to be the first people to turn them back in. Those are the people who buy a gun. They think that they're doing something great because they're protecting their family during the pandemic, and it sits in the original box underneath their bed or in a gun safe and gets trotted out twice a year. That's great. It would be awesome if we could convert those people into real believers, but I just don't think that that's happening. And I think that's been proven out by, again, if that was really the case, the Democrat Party wouldn't be going as hard at gun control as they are, and they don't seem to be deterred by the number of new gun owners.
That's a valid point. Let me take a quick second to read some of these super chats, everybody, and then we'll engage in the next phase of questioning, which is, in essence, okay. So to Justin's last point or statement, We have all of these new gun owners. We have all of these gang of new gun owners. A lot of them may have voted for Joe Biden, but the Joe Biden administration, regardless of whether those people are gun owners or not, have seemed to ramp up this new, HR 127 type vibe. Okay, so real quick, everybody take their perspective on that question. I'm going to read some of these super chats real quick. Now, I want everybody to understand this is completely, y'all know I'm freedom over everything. In the chat, the people that are super chats, I'm absolutely going to get to your super chat, so I'm reading everybody. But I'm again, in this scenario, I am a moderator. Okay, I'm going to read these chats, these super chats as they come. I want to keep those super chats very respectful to both parties, regardless of what quote unquote side you on. So no one's said anything in the super chats that I see disrespectful yet. So I want to try to limit that beforehand. So let's read real quick. Lynn Nas with a $5 super chat. Phoenix did educate Biden voters by his message, meaning Phoenix ammo. He showed them some tough love. This is their wake up. Okay. Let's scoot up a little bit. Lord Understatement says, Rob, Phoenix is educating Democrats, on gun control. He's showing them the results of their voting. They couldn't buy ammo anyway under Biden's plan. Let's screw up a bit. Derek Rogers with a $10 super chat. He didn't say anything. If you want to have, also, if you have questions for Rob or Justin, please, hit the super chat. Let's keep going up. This guy is Evil Assault Weaponeer says, don't like Biden and Trump. Really? Like guns and liberty? Check out Mises Caucus and Libertarian Party. It was great to see Maj in Orlando last year. I was in Orlando 2 days ago, too. It's like 80 degrees down there, which is like, I don't even know why we're living in any other place other than somewhere that's 80 degrees this time of the year. Let's scroll up a little bit. We have Chad Holsizer, if I'm saying that right. As freedom-loving Americans, our job is to embrace all people, regardless of the person's background. To do otherwise is hypocritical and makes you no different than the left. Thanks for that $20 super chat. I'm going to scroll up and I'll do one or two more that I can see. And then I want whoever just went last, I want the most recently, I want the other person to go. The Fix for New York podcast, $2 says shall not be infringed. What does shall not mean? I guess that's a question in context. And I don't see. Yeah, I already did Eric Smith, who said the hood don't know what a 4473 is. Boom. Okay, so I think Justin, I think you went last. Rob, yeah. In regards to now that we have this new influx of gun owners in, does that actually help the Biden administration's plan, or how do we actually engage that influx of new gun owning demographic, the ones that are Biden voters, or is it just going to get steamrolled, to Justin's point, or is it too little too late? Is it just going to get steamrolled? How can we stop that steamroll from happening?
I haven't seen evidence that the 8 million, I think 8 million is the number going around right now. I haven't seen evidence of any portion of them being Biden voters or Democrat supporters or previously voted Democrat or previously anti-gun. I mean, that's the narrative. A lot of people are saying that. We don't know. We don't even know how many of them are first-time gun owners, right? One of the things we celebrate in our community is that there is no federal record keeping, right? So just like the informal anecdotal polls of a local gun shop guy that says, oh yeah, 60% of our buyers are buying first-time guns. There's less scientific study right now than there is on the how many gun owners support, any amount of gun control. And I think that's really important to understand. So when I think about a new gun owner, let's say that anybody who if they bought because of the pandemic, they bought because of civil unrest, they bought because gun control might come in, this is their last chance to buy a gun, and maybe it'll get grandfathered in. Whatever the motivation over the last year, for this month after month after month of record gun sales, there's a reason those people weren't buying guns last year, right? So let's say it's half. If half of the people that bought guns last year bought their gun for the first time, I don't think there's any indication that the reason they didn't buy is because they've been voting Democrat. We know there are plenty of people who vote Democrat and have been buying guns. Union supporters in the Midwest, conservative, socially conservative Southern Democrats, right? Like for decades, there have been people who vote Democrat in Midwest and South especially, and are proud gun owners and hunters and rural kind of people that embrace all those socially conservative aspects of the Republican Party, but support the Democratic Party for other reasons. So I don't know what that number is. What I do know is they weren't part of the gun community 2 years ago. So when I go back and I look, I say, okay, what's been one of the biggest problems with the gun community in terms of the marketing of the gun community? People know I've talked about this a lot. If you look at the NRA as the biggest name in gun rights, the biggest organization, there are people in Washington, D.C. that don't even think there's any place else to go for what the gun owners say. And they go look at what the NRA says. Media, a lot of big media. What do gun owners say? Go to the NRA, right? The NRA still hasn't made a statement, is one of the things we hear after mass shootings or after any kind of high-profile incident. Why didn't the NRA do anything about Philando Castile? Well, lots of us did speak out on behalf of Philando Castile as American gun owners and gun rights advocates and running organizations, companies, or whatever. And yet the NRA didn't back them, so gun owners must be against them because gun owners don't like black people, right? Or people who do marijuana or whatever the narrative is. That's so incredibly unfair, but it's still the perception. So when you look at the NRA, what have they? I don't even think they've ever broke 10% of gun owners as their membership. It's probably more like 5%. So you've got 5% of American gun owners willing to raise their hand and say, yeah, I want to be associated with that. Maybe we need to look at what they're representing and how they're representing themselves and say that's not the way to do it. And
how has that changed? How has that changed to get that new groundswell of gun owners?
Yeah, but the new groundswell needs to hear voices like yours. The new groundswell needs to hear voices like Second Amendment organization. New groundswell needs to know that we can go on a panel with people who are voting Democrat. We can get up and say we're all gun owners. Like somebody who's living a non-conservative lifestyle, we're all gun owners. Somebody who's overtly and obviously anti-Republican or anti-Trump. Somebody who's just willing to say Trump enacted gun control. You guys got duped. To gun owners and say, yeah, we got duped, we get it. But the other people, we think they're worse. And therefore, we will still support the guy who we know enacted gun control because we don't think his gun control is as bad as that guy's gun control might be. These honest conversations, that's what's going to bring that 8 million, 4 million, 2 million new gun owners into the conversation. Otherwise, they're going to buy their gun and they're going to go home. Now, I don't, just because they don't go to the competition, again, due respect, Justin's built a name for his company very, very quickly, but he's also very, very quickly. Like in 2, 3, 4, 5 years, I don't know, I think 2 or 3 years doing this full time, 4 or 5 years the company's existed. We're talking about decades of experience watching these cycles over and over and over again, seeing how people get fired up about, oh, Obama's going to take our guns, Clinton's going to take our guns. I get it. I lived through the 94 assault weapons ban. I know what we were doing. I know who was complying and who wasn't. I know where some of those guns were buried in the PPC pipes just in case it didn't sunset, and then someday we needed them. I get all that. I understand the energy, I understand the angst, and I sort of respect it, like I empathize with it. But I also, at some point, it's like, wait a minute, pump the brakes, because this isn't 1994, and everybody's watching everything now, and it doesn't go away. So we might want to speak a little bit more rationally and a little bit more logically, a little bit more patiently, and embrace these other ideas so that people coming into the community are excited to be part of it. And maybe they're going to come in and say, I've wiped my hands of it, right? You think of like Dan Gross that was in D.C. with us speaking at the 2A rally. He wiped his hands of the big gun control organizations. He used to think that was the way, but he realized working with gun owners to educate about best practices to reduce negative outcomes is way better than assault weapons bans, capacity bans, and that. But then the diehards don't want to hear it. But no, I don't trust that guy. Well, so we need to have the conversation.
Justin, your rebuttal to that position?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, we're talking a lot about Trump here. Nothing on our website references Trump. This has got nothing to do, literally nothing to do with Trump. In fact, there's probably a lot of people that voted third party or didn't vote at all, or probably did vote for Trump and really, again, had no idea about Biden's gun control plan, who are now seeing it for the first time. So this idea that we're just tossing people out and acting as some kind of a gatekeeper to prevent people from exercising their Second Amendment rights, it's just not the case. They have the ability to see the information and make the decisions for themselves. And I just can't wrap my head around this idea that we have to give Biden voters a pass for, again, voting for something that affects my industry. So another thing that we enacted a few weeks ago, we stopped selling to police departments. Why? Because we got fined by our police department, not by the police department, but the police department wrote a report which resulted in us getting fined by the health department for not wearing masks in our own facility. So I don't see the need to sell ammunition to police departments that are going to enforce blatantly unconstitutional mandates passed by a governor. And so we're going to stand on that principle just the same. I guess I would ask, for those people who think that it's wrong of us to discriminate against people for a particular political leaning, I wonder if they would feel the same way if somebody dressed in all black with, a T-shirt that says "I'm a member of Antifa" came into our shop and said, "Hey, I want to buy a whole bunch of ammo because I'm heading out to Portland and we've got this thing planned." Obviously, I wouldn't sell to them. I don't see. I would bet that 99.9% of the people would agree with us on that position. Are all Biden voters members of Antifa? Obviously not. The point is that we have to we have to be able to say, look, these are the principles that we feel are good for the gun community. Again, having a set of core values that we can all rally around, rather than just saying we need to get this community to be as big as possible, and then we'll figure out where to go from there. The bigger a crowd gets, the harder it is to manage the direction of where people flow. And it doesn't make any sense for us to try to reach out to people who are voting for a candidate that is running on one of the most extreme gun control platforms we've ever seen. It just doesn't. I just don't see the need to do it. I don't know any other way to put it.
So in essence, it becomes an argument of, hey, these people are, you don't think that this group of these people, so I get away with saying shit like that. Y'all can't. Yeah. I can say these people, right? In essence, it becomes, and I'm making light of it, but it's a very serious thing. This group of people that are voting a certain way, historically, Justin, I guess, and again, don't allow me to put too many words in your mouth. Historically, we don't see the benefit if directly after having these record-breaking month after month record sales, where is the proof that this group or demographic that did vote Joe Biden is not going to be in more support of that same type of legislation on the state all the way up to the federal level? If I'm saying now, Rob, I guess to you, I would pose from state and then pose. For you, it's an issue of if we go more hardline, we're going to make that hard line in the sand, keep those groups of people that we potentially could reach out to if they run across Fenix Ammunition's website and go, man, I don't like this treatment. And it's harder to engage them. From both of you guys' perspective, and Rob, you take this first, where is the actual data that shows that we can change this person from a hardcore Biden anti-gun person if we just redirect them and show them the actual, policy? Or, and on which way? Where can we see where, because I want to get to the numbers of it. Right now, it's very influential, or it's a theory, but on either one of you guys decide, which way can we determine that either one of you guys' perspective is more beneficial for the Second Amendment?
I'm unaware of any data or research. I go back and forth a lot with people who are really good researchers about, like, I'll yield, right? If somebody says, so-and-so many kids, 0.02% of firearms homes with kids result in injury to the kids. Maybe, I'll tell you this, I don't know what the data is, but if there's one kid that gets hurt with a gun because the parents were negligent in the way that they stored the gun or they allowed access, they trained, they're educated that kid, that's too many. Second Amendment organization and Rob Pincus are working to stop that and make the number zero or move closer to zero, right? It's a make Earth better policy. So I don't know of any data. I'm not even interested in collecting the data. I can tell you that, you can just look in the comments right here and see that there are people who voted Democratic who believe in gun rights. You can look at Liberal Gun Club. You can look at Guns for Everyone. You can look at Tony Simon's Second Amendment diversity shoot, Second Amendment for Everyone, the diversity shoot project he's been running for years successfully up in New Jersey. Look at the work that New Jersey Second Amendment Society does, Gold does, San Diego gun owners. So anecdotally, again, just look at the comments here, let alone go anywhere else to see plenty of people who have had their perspective evolve or who are voting Democrat for other reasons and are working to educate their fellow Democratic voters, right? This flag waving that happens, right, and the table pounding and the chest thumping about, I'm conservative, I voted Republican, I voted against this, or I voted libertarian, all of this identity politics sort of virtue signal, right? It really undermines what is self-evidently true, that in America, there are over 100 million gun owners, probably, right? We count gun owners that we don't have any idea, like somebody said, before 73 exist in the backwoods or the hood, either way. So there are plenty of gun owners in this country, and there weren't over 100 million voters for any party. There weren't over 100 million voters running around saying, let's get rid of guns. There weren't 100 million voters saying, we love guns out loud. Data is sort of I don't know. To me, it's kind of like the poll. I mean, Justin was the first one to point out, like, he doesn't trust certain polls. Well, there's your data, right? And I'm telling you right now, I don't trust certain polls either. What we do know is that you can find people who own guns who are okay with background checks. We do know you can find people like myself who are completely against universal background checks, right? And you can go to gunrights.info and see over 60 position statements that I wrote on gun rights issues, right? So if anybody, like people in the comments, like, oh, Rob's for gun control. Well, go read gunrights.info because it's in writing. And I've been doing this for a long time. This isn't anecdotal based on 2 years of observation, as an ammo manufacturer and a competitive shooter. I do the education. I do the outreach. And I'll invite Justin. I mean, just you're sincere. Come work with us. Do get out here, get out of the echo chamber, and have these conversations. I'll get you conversations with people
Justin,
who are.
Do you agree with Rob that you think you're in an echo chamber?
No, I don't agree with that at all. This idea that we're somehow not promoting diversity within the shooting community is just absolutely ridiculous. I don't know where he gets that opinion. But we have to, there's a difference between the diversity of color, religion, sexual orientation, and diversity of, hey, I own a gun, but I'm going to be the first person to turn it in when a Democrat president passes some kind of gun control legislation. That's not helping the community. And just because they own a gun doesn't mean that they're going to actually stand up for the principles of why do I own a gun? What are the reasons? I'm here. I own a gun because I need to protect my family. I believe that the right to defend yourself is a human right that surpasses all others. We don't have freedom of speech without the ability to defend yourself with violence. We don't have the ability to keep the government from quartering troops in your home without the ability to enact violence should you need to do that. So all of those things supersede, to me, all of those things supersede the other issues at hand. So, I mean, this idea that somehow we're not reaching out, we've donated over 50,000 rounds of ammunition to a group here in Michigan that in the last 2 years has educated more than, I think, 2,500 women in over a couple of weekends, mostly black women, I might add. And
Rick Ector at over there in Detroit.
Yep, absolutely. Rick Ector. We've donated ammunition to all kinds of events in Texas, Florida. All of those are reaching out to people who may not look like what the gun community traditionally looks like, but they all have the same core values, and that's what I'm getting at. They understand that I'm going to get into this community because I feel that the right to defend myself against an aggressor, the government, is something that's very important to me. And those are the people that we want, and those are the people that we're reaching with our message. I mean, this weekend, tens of thousands of people went to our website, read our message, saw Joe Biden's gun control platform, and were able to make a decision for themselves. I don't see how, I just don't understand how that's detrimental to the community.
Justin, I want to ask you a question, and in turn, I'm going to ask Rob the same exact question because, as you're finishing up that sentence, why is Rob wrong here? And Rob, when Justin gives his perspective, I want you to share, why is Justin wrong here? Justin, go ahead.
Sure. So the idea that we're doing something insidious, that this is some aspect of cancel culture or that we're being exclusionary. I would say we are being exclusionary of people who, again, don't believe in the core values that we feel as a company we want to represent and what we feel the Second Amendment represents. The idea that it's again insidious. I guess I take exception to that because we're reaching, as I said, tens of thousands of people. They're getting to make the decision for themselves. We've received something like 12,000 emails in the last 3 days. 1 out of every 200 or so is negative. And typically those are from people who are angry that we've criticized Trump for being somewhat anti-gun as a president. So all of the feedback we've received is overwhelmingly positive from people that are just simple gun owners, people who are trainers in the community, own gun ranges. We're just not sure where he's getting at here that this is detrimental to the community. We feel it's a good rallying cry. It's an opportunity for people to say, you know what, maybe this is a line in the sand. Maybe now that the Democrats have control over both the House and the Senate and the presidency, this is an opportunity for them to do something, and we need to get together and say that we're just not going to allow this to happen. And I guess my answer or my question to him, if we have time for it, would be, what aspects of HR 127 or Joe Biden's gun control plan would you be willing to accept? And if either of those things passed, would you comply with the provisions of those laws?
Solid question. So, Rob, I would love for you to answer that question first, and then the question to you would be, how is Justin wrong here? But I would love for you to address the question that Justin just posed to you.
Yeah, I don't agree with any of the provisions of HR 127. I think that question, this is how he's wrong, is that he didn't ask that question, right? He asked this question about Biden voters, and even in there's a comment here, it's not insidious, it's just juvenile and hurts the rest of us, from one of the commenters. Like, that's sort of where I am, and I wouldn't have, I'm reading a quote of a comment. Where I am is, I don't think that Justin really has the perspective or knowledge, the experience certainly, to understand the potential ramifications of what he's doing. And I get that he has an echo chamber that's telling him this is awesome. That's sort of how echo chambers work, right? I mean, for him to go on Twitter and say, absolutely no one agrees with you, Rob, and yet all he has to do is look at my Twitter feed, right, which he could argue is an echo chamber, I get it, but all he has to do is look at my social media feed or go to liberal gun owners or liberal gun club or Guns for Everyone or Tony Simon Diversity Shoot. All he has to do is go see that they're like, again, one person agreeing with me literally refutes his premise, and that's the problem. To equate someone who voted for Biden to someone who comes into your shop and says, I need 50,000 rounds, it sounds like they're going to plan a violent terrorist assault on an American city. That's the mentality, right? And that's so sophomoric. I can't even take it seriously. And it amazes me that there are so many people in the comments who are thinking this is okay, and yet just heard Justin try to equate someone who voted for Biden with someone who's going to commit a violent act of terror with 50,000 live rounds in an American city. It's that's where he's wrong.
Justin, you have a perspective for that? So real quick,
I don't think that's what I said at all. What I was saying is, if in that situation, we would have the right to discriminate against that person because they obviously don't believe in the values that we believe in. And so similarly, somebody who comes in and says, you know what, I'd like to buy 1,000 rounds of ammo from you today, but just so you know, I voted for a person that is looking to put your company out of business. So, hey, but here's my money. Thanks for the ammo. It boggles my mind that anybody thinks that I should be willing to do that. And luckily, I'm in a position where I don't have to.
In essence, you guys are having this argument, and I want to step back for a second. I want each one of you to address each other for about 60 seconds. I'll put the timer on, and I don't want to be involved. I want you guys to converse, and I'm going to step back. Rob?
Oh, that's great. So, Justin, do you understand that there is a difference between someone who voted for Biden and someone who wants HR 127 to pass? Or do you equate those two things as being equal?
I don't see how you can't. The only way that could pass would be with Joe Biden as president and the Democrats having control of the Congress and the Senate. So to me, that's like saying I go to Chipotle and I say, hey, I want some chicken and beans on my burrito, and they start putting it together, and the guy says, hey, but I just have to put a little bit of cat shit in your burrito. Are you good with that? And I say, no, I don't want that in my burrito. And he says, yeah, but it all comes in the package, so you either take it or leave it. I mean, would you expect me to eat that? No, I wouldn't. But that is what we are eating by having voted for Joe Biden. That's you just can't get around it. You cannot separate out one of his programs from all of his other programs. It would be great if we could vote for political candidates a la carte, but that's just not how it works. And all of his other issues, none of those affect me except this issue. This is the issue that pays my bills. This is the issue that feeds the families of my employees, and I'm simply not willing to compromise on it.
I think you're politically naive if you think that's the only thing that affects you, and I also think you're restaurantally naive if you think cat shit's on the menu at Chipotle. Like when you go to Chipotle, you do get to pick and choose what goes into your burrito. It's a horrible analogy, and it kind of makes the point that you're looking at this, in my opinion, in a very simplistic, naive way, and it's working for marketing, but it doesn't work for advocacy.
Right, but the problem is that we don't get to pick and choose with our political candidates. You either get the whole thing or you get nothing.
Is this a scenario where you guys, because I'm shaping and I'm seeing, you know, as an outside observer, I'm in it, but I'm also stepping back from the bubble and looking back a bit. Justin, your perspective sounds like, listen, you guys picked and continue to support a person that in essence is trying to put me out of business. Rob, your positions is, hey, your approach to those people currently may be getting them to harden on their issues the same way. Do you guys think that's a fair assessment? No?
No, I don't. No, I don't think he's getting them the heart. I think what he's doing is he's losing an opportunity to show the gun community as wanting to work with anybody who's pro-gun, right?
Why do you have to work with someone?
They're not pro-gun, Rob. That's the problem. They're not pro-gun, and you cannot claim that they are. We would love to work with people who are pro-gun, but if you're voting for a candidate that's going to ban AR-15s, 30-round mags, require background checks on private sales, you are not pro-gun, and that's just what it comes down to. I don't understand how you can't wrap your head around that. Those people are not pro-gun.
Rob, can you be pro-gun and want some of those bans that Justin's talking about?
Not in the sense that I would use pro-gun, not at all. But I do believe you cannot want those bans and vote for a candidate that has 100 position issues, and that's one of them, and be pro-gun, because you're not voting. Again, as Justin pointed out, we vote for a party, we vote for a candidate. Quite honestly, the White House isn't where it's at. I mean, the better question again is, did you vote for a Democratic senator? That's where the action is, right? I've been trying to get people to pay attention since June. The Senate's where this race was at, and it was the race for the White House that cost the Republicans the Senate. And if gun control passes, it's because the eye was in the wrong place, I believe, from the gun community, focused way too much on the White House and not nearly enough in the Senate. So I agree with what Justin said in terms of we get everything. That's why the Chipotle burrito was a bad example. We get everything. But that doesn't mean if somebody comes and buys me a burrito and it's got something in there I don't want, I take my fork and I try to get it out of there. There might still be a little in there, but the same way, you vote for a party. If we are working with the Democrats that are trying to educate their fellow Democrat voters and their elected officials to the point, hey, we love you on abortion. We love you on immigration. We want taxes. Whatever it is they vote for those people for and they like, but we don't like the gun thing. So why don't you ease back off of that? And that's obviously what happened with Obama, right? And we had 8 years of, they're going to take all our guns, but there was not even enough support in the Democratic Party for that to happen, for him even to push it, because he did executive orders. He could have done executive orders. I get the Senate changes things, but again, because we're way too hyper-focused on the White House.
But then the question becomes, in that sense, do we agree that we're seeing some level of gun control, like on steroids, that we didn't see? We heard the rhetoric during the Obama administration. Is that rhetoric here, Rob, is your position that, well, it's just rhetoric again this time? Or do you see it as, or either one of you see it as, no, this is comprehensive It's not just them posturing, and they do have the House, the Senate, and the executive branch, with Kamala making the deciding situation here. Is this a little bit more than just rhetoric? Justin, your perspective.
Yeah, I think this is obviously different than other candidates in the past. Again, it's been a top level issue. I don't think Obama really took gun control seriously until after Sandy Hook, and I think he had other things on his mind. But I don't think that they'll make that mistake again. I think, especially with some of the nonsense that went on in 2020 on both sides of the table, I just don't see them going another 4 years without making some big moves in that direction. So the bottom line is our message and Joe Biden's gun control plan got viewed by hundreds of thousands of people this weekend with a fairly detailed explanation of exactly why. So people I would ask Rob, how many people saw your message this weekend? Did you reach 100,000 people letting them know about Joe Biden's gun safety plan? I don't think you did. Maybe you have over the last few years, and that's fair. But we're doing what we can. We have the ability to reach people on a national level with our platform. We didn't say, hey, guess what? Anybody who voted for Joe Biden, go screw yourself. We hope your house burns down. All we said was, listen, if you voted for a guy that wants to put us out of business and wants to severely curtail the rights that you are enjoying at this point in time, you should think about this, and you should have read his gun control plan before you check that box. And if you feel that there are other issues that are more important than this, that's fine. There's plenty of other companies in the industry that you can do business with. Federal, Remington, all those guys, they make their money on government contracts and selling to police departments. So if Joe Biden decides to take all the guns away from the citizens, yeah, it's going to hurt them a little bit, but it's really not going to it's not going to impact their business as much as it will certainly us and other small companies in the industry. So fortunately, we don't have corporate sponsors that we have to cater to and craft our message so that we don't offend certain folks. And we'd rather rally around the people that take it seriously and want to not only prevent any more infringements from happening, but look at telling the government no and rolling back some of the things that we've lost.
Rob?
I've asked some questions in public again, I realize I'm supposed to probably not ask questions. You didn't give me the floor for that. I have questions about the premise of cutting back law enforcement sales, cutting back sales to someone who voted Democrat, and how much that really is, again, marketing versus any kind of sacrifice, right? In a time that ammo can't stay on the shelf, right? I fear the virtue signaling is just reinforcing that rabble-rousing fringe element of the community that keeps other people from speaking up and saying, I'm a proud American gun owner, because they don't want to be associated with it. And we know that exists. And again, the fact that one person feels that way doesn't necessarily mean anything. But if you got 100 of them or 1,000 of them or 10 million of them, it starts to mean something. The issues of pro-gun control or like for gun control or tolerant of gun control, I would say, does Justin sell to people who fill out 4473s because they're complying with gun control? Does Justin, sell to people who have pistol braces instead of just real stocks on short-barreled rifles and say they don't care about NFA because they're complying, they're pro-gun control, right? I mean, that's the thing. When you start getting absolutist, you start getting all like idealistic about it. I can't say for you, Maj, but I know that Justin's complying with laws around shipping ammunition. He's complying. And I have an FFL, I have an SOT, I have a manufacturer and importer's license. I fill out 4473s. I've complied with gun laws. So how absolutist and how pure are we really, and how pure are we willing to be? Because I contend that if you're that pure, you don't even have a manufacturing license. You're making ammo and you're selling it out of the back of your car and you're shipping it to people and you're doing whatever you want to do because you're willing to take the fine, you're willing to do the civil disobedience, and now you're walking that talk that you're talking.
Just?
Well, I mean, I guess I'm not really sure what to say to that. I'm not really sure where he's going with that argument.
I can clarify.
Are we supposed to continue to accept additional infringements at what point where is your line in the sand, Rob? At what point are you going to say, you know what, I'm not going to deal with, I'm not going to comply with this anymore, and I'm not going to allow them to take any more from me? Do you have a line? Are we allowed to have that conversation as a community? And more importantly, when are we going to have that conversation with all these brand new gun owners? They have to know that is a fundamental part of being, in my opinion, being part of the gun community. At some point, they have to have a conversation and say, where is your line in the sand? For me personally, it's AR-15s. I'm not turning any in. I have no plan to do that. And if somebody comes to my door, then that's going to be a problem. It may be different for you, but I don't see how we can continue to allow things to move further and further down the line until we get to the point where we say, hey, look, this community is not as cohesive as we think it is. And that's really what we're preaching more than anything else. I want cohesion over inclusion. Okay, and when I say cohesion over inclusion, I'm not talking about excluding people of a particular race, creed, etc., but people who don't share the core values.
I feel that.
Just that simple.
Let me answer. Let me do some of these super chats real quick, and then we're going to start to wrap up. Quick question for Justin. It says, voted Biden for president for social issues, but Republican senator to oppose any gun laws going through the Senate. Thoughts?
Well, at the end of the day, Biden's the one that's got to sign it, and I mean, we don't have control over the Senate, so I guess I appreciate what you did, but I'm not really sure if Republicans control the Senate, nothing that Joe Biden wants to get done was going to get done anyway. So I guess I would wonder what specific social issue did you vote for in terms of Biden that you thought a Republican-controlled Senate would pass? I mean, if it's something like marijuana laws, okay, I guess that's about the only one where I could see Republicans moving their position, giving something to get something. But I'm not really sure there's a ton of other social issues that a Republican Senate would be passing, especially not, after this election where tempers are high and grudges are at an all-time maximum. I don't see what social. That's what I would be wanting to ask him: is what social issue did you vote for that you think Biden is a supporter of that Trump would not be, and a Republican Senate would be willing to pass?
Fair. Voxman says cops spent 2020 allowing Antifa to burn the country and attack anyone outside the left's religion. They instead gleefully arrested churchgoers. Rob, you want to give a perspective on that?
No.
I will.
That's what I mean.
I've got a perspective on that. I think it's absolutely bullshit, and that's why we're not selling to police departments anymore. If they can't protect small, I mean, again, I'll make another analogy. I know everybody hated the burrito analogy, so I'll make another one. If I'm a business owner in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and Antifa burns down my restaurant, I rebuild my restaurant, and then a bunch of Antifa people want to come in and hold their annual meeting there, and they're willing to pay for all the catering, and they want to rent the whole place out. Should I feel obligated to rent to them and take their money? Of course not. Why would I? They're the reason that I suffered.
So, Rob, you agree? Rob, you just said you agree with that point.
Yeah.
Is that scalable?
I think here's the difference. I'm a gun rights advocate. I'm not a local ammo guy that goes to competitions, right? So as a gun rights advocate, I'm trying to talk to anybody that wants to represent the gun community or work with these new gun owners or gun owners who supported Biden or gun owners who are going to turn in their AR-15s, whoever these gun owners are that I don't agree with. I want to have conversations with them. I don't want to cut that. And that's, again, the reason I got involved in this conversation wasn't to tell Fenix he was doing something wrong. It's to tell the people that think this is a good tactic for like punishing or ostracizing or retribution against people who voted for Biden, that's going to somehow help our cause. I mean, it's not. I'm sitting here making like guns without serial numbers. right? Like I've been here for a long time doing this a lot of different ways, and I've made some mistakes, and I'm probably making some, that I don't know about next year, but I'm doing it from the perspective of trying to influence as many people who own guns who are already, they've taken that step. They've already put that toe in the water at least, and have conversation with them. So I'm talking to Justin seems to be saying he wants to get into the gun rights advocacy stuff, right? Cool. You want to get into Rick Ecker. I've supported his project for years. You want to get into the gun rights advocacy stuff and start supporting that and being part of it? Cool. Just send the money, send the ammo, or let's have a real conversation about how to do that best, because I don't think this is the right one. So when you ask if it's scalable, again, I don't think you're going to find 80% of the ammunition manufacturers in the country saying, we're not going to sell to you if you voted for the guy we don't like. It's not a tenable business practice. Again, I would say, like, how much of Phoenix Ammunition's contracts in 2019 and 2020 were to law enforcement agencies buying on contracts? Because I'm guessing it wasn't that much. So what's the real sacrifice, right? And maybe I'm wrong, right? Maybe it was 40% of his business, and now he's really sacrificing, and that's more impressive, right, to me as someone who's living their values. But I don't think that's the move to try to have the influence, right? I did it. I said I wasn't going to train. I used to do firearms training unit instructor development for the Chicago Police Department, second largest police department in the country. I go in, I teach for them a couple times a year, plus instructor development, their rifle programs based on my stuff. I, at one point, drew a line and said, I am not going to go teach for the Chicago PD unless they rebuke the mayor's position on gun rights.
So mind blown, Rob. Now, and again, I'm sliding out of moderator mode, kind of to like my own question. So, Rob, with that perspective, how is that any different than what Just is doing right now in that regard?
It's not. That's what I'm saying. This is what we had. This is the conversation we had weeks ago about Twitter. I'm an objectivist, right? I was just showing off on a different live. I mean, I got my, this is, by the way, if you haven't really read Atlas Shrugged, but you like support Atlas Shrugged, but it's a big book and it's got a lot of words, read Anthem, because this is the way to start. It's like 55 pages. That's what I was talking about earlier. I've been reminding you to go read your rant. People are trying to Ellis Wyatt Zuckerberg. I think Zuckerberg should just hit delete on all our Facebook accounts and sit back and chill on a yacht. Like burn it. Leave the internet the way you found it. Like, that would be amazing to me. I would applaud that, because that's subjectivism. That's entrepreneurialism. That's capitalism. You don't have a right to tell me what to do with what I built. I've done it. Phoenix is doing it. But there's a difference. As an advocate, again, I said I'm wearing my Second Amendment organization hat. This isn't the move, right? I wasn't trying to change the law enforcement community with that move. I wasn't telling everybody in the world, hey, let's not give cops training anymore. I let cops come and train with me. I still teach in Illinois in the Chicago suburbs, and cops can come train with me all day long, because I care about them getting the best education they can to protect themselves and the people they're trying to take care of. But what I won't do is work for the agency that is supporting, right, the actual political apparatus. And that's the subtle difference.
Justin, give your perspective on that, and then we're going to wrap up real quick. And I want Justin, give your perspective, then we're going to wrap up. And I want everybody to give their perspective, how everybody can reach out, all that other good stuff. And if you got any questions, ask them now as a super chat. Y'all no more talking unless you guys are like helping out the actual content. Go ahead, Justin.
Yeah, sure. My perspective is we need more companies in the industry that are willing to walk the walk and talk the talk. I mean, I've trained with a lot of great firearms trainers, and one thing that you can be sure of is if you go to a training class and the instructor isn't willing to do what he's asking you to do, then you should probably go somewhere else. And we feel that that's what we're going to do as a company. Barrett Firearms, same thing. They don't sell to law enforcement in New York or California because citizens aren't allowed to possess their rifles, so they made the decision to walk away. So we feel that we're very, very comfortable being in the same line of thinking as a company like Barrett when it comes to this issue. Police contracts weren't a big part of our business. I don't see why that matters. I'm not sure why I should have to sacrifice in order to take a stand on a particular issue. Everything that we can do to advocate for our position, and at the end of the day, our post got viewed by who knows how many people, 20,000 likes. 8,000 shares. It was spread all over the internet. More people read Joe Biden's gun control plan as a result of our post than probably anything else that was done during his campaign. So this idea that we're not helping to that we're excluding parts of the community, or that we're being vindictive, or just telling people to go F off or something like that. We've done more education in 3 days than many gun advocate organizations do in a year. And I just don't see why, Rob's opinion and his 2A organization has to be the only opinion that's allowed. Certainly we're making a lot of headway, and we'll continue to do that.
Rob?
No, again, that's the point. I want a lot of different thoughts out there. I don't think that I ever asserted that our organization is the only one that should be listened to. There's this recurring theme of a lot of people saw Biden's gun control plan. I don't know, like I was talking with one of the guys who's running one of the organizations who does the best amounts of work and is most successful in the courts. And we were talking about, like, we're past the point of saying, hey, Biden's going to take your guns. We got it. Biden's going to take our guns. Now what are we going to do about it? How are we going to talk about it? One of the ways we're going to talk about it, one of the things we're going to do about it, is try to get people who can and will put pressure on the people they elected to run the Senate. And again, this goes back, like to Justin agreed with whoever was the commenter, like, it's the Senate. When he said, oh, great, you voted for Biden for this, but it's the Senate that matters. Again, why aren't you asking about the Senate? Were you campaigning for the Senate, right? This is where the action is. And they don't have 60 votes. It's still going to be a fight. And understanding how politics works, understanding how our structure of government works, understanding that there's a difference between 1775 and 2020. There's a lot of things that I think just fundamentally are flawed with the premise, but I do believe Justin's intentions are sincere, and I know we're way late, but let me end with that, if nothing else. I do believe Justin is sincere, and I do offer like a hand of like, hey, let's figure this out. Like, let's find out where we can collaborate, because Maj, you and I disagree. I disagree with a lot of other people about little detailed things, but there's common ground. That's what I want. The common ground with the Democratic voter that still has a gun is you've got a gun, and you're interested in exercising your rights. And maybe you think it's okay to give up an AR-15. I don't think so. Let's have that conversation. But we're going to start from common ground, not from, you don't know what you're doing, you don't know the gun control plan, or you're willing to betray guns. I mean, the whole concept of, you find me the one voter, find me the one person that Justin could say, that guy who has said, yeah, I'm pro-gun, but I'll give up my AR-15 if Biden tells me to. Like, nobody's screaming at the Senate to me yet.
That was literally the conversation I had with the woman I spoke to on Thursday.
Well, I've had conversations too, but, get it in writing. I don't know.
So let me jump in here. One, I'll give my brief synopsis and then we'll wrap out. First and foremost, I want to thank you, brothers, for your work for the Second Amendment, and whichever level you guys may agree on, which is the right approach. The bottom line for me is, if anyone comes to physically try to remove my firearms, we got to do what we got to do. And I'm pretty sure that most people in theory feel that way. I think more people are more willing, as more gun control is being presented legislatively, are more willing to be more vocal about that. So I can see and can appreciate that. I also can see and appreciate the want to say, hey, these are new gun owners based on what we know. Since that's the case, let's reach out to them as well. I think you guys actually have more overlap. That's why I think this conversation has been, I think you have some key solid areas where you guys completely are like, no, I think this way is better. I think that way is better. Right. But I also think that you guys have more overlap, at least from my perspective, in this conversation than I initially even anticipated. So one, thank you for having this dialogue. I thought it was very important. I was laughing like fuck, at y'all Twitter back and forth at both of y'all and with both of y'all at the same time. And I'm glad that you guys both decided to do this particular YouTube or stream or whatever you want to call it. I want to make sure that everyone is following Rob, Second Amendment 2A organization. I want to make sure that everybody's following Justin over at Fenix Ammo, Fenix. If you came in late, yes, they are our ammo sponsors. Yes, Rob has been supportive of Black Guns Matter for years at this point as well. I want to make sure that you're all following their social media accounts. Instagram and Facebook snatched Phoenix's, but follow them on Twitter. I want to make sure that if you choose to support this company, this small business during a time where, it's kind of crazy out there, I think you should. If you are, I'm absolutely telling you to. I think that if you are looking for training, you should also support Rob. And if you're looking for advocacy, you should follow the Personal Defense Network, ICE training, so things of that nature. I want you all to make sure that we're having this conversation out of this room. And the takeaway that is all the way out of the moderator world into, me being, involved and biased is I think that you should absolutely reach out to someone that is the other, or the person that is politically the other, culturally the other, spiritually the other, especially if they're on the fence or a new gun owner. I don't think that there's anything, I want to be clear here, I don't think there's anything that Justin has said that is insinuating that, hell no, if they're on the other side, I don't even want to talk to them. And I think that's the point, the recurring theme of, hey, we've shown a lot of people about this Biden plan because a lot of people that voted for him just didn't even read it, just wasn't even aware of. And I do think that starts the dialogue. I think to Rob's point, I think it's very important that we aren't initially, you find what your line in the sand is, but when that new gun owner that may not be aware currently of how his or her political choices are tied into the gun that they actually owned, I think that it's an opportunity for us to engage that person. But back to Justin's point, and again, I'm paraphrasing a bit what I'm perceiving from these gentlemen's points. Justin's point of, if a person has made that line in the sand and they're not interested in learning how their political choices affect their right as a gun owner, you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Find the personal group or businesses or organizations that align with it and still make the Second Amendment the support in that regard. I think that puts a pretty good cap on it. I'm going to invite both of you to things together. One, because if you guys get in the fight, it'll be funny and, we'll do it for the gram. But if not, I think you brothers will still be really solid voices, for whatever level of each person's absolutist or a little bit more quote unquote liberal in that regard, Second Amendment advocacy. So I thank you all tremendously for that. And can everybody please just real briefly state your social media pages?
Our only social media page is on Twitter at Phoenix Ammo, and then obviously our website, phoenixammo.com.
Rob?
At Pincus, Rob, Pincus is the Twitter, the Parler if it comes back. I tried to get back on there today. It wasn't uploading for me, but supposedly they're back. Instagram, all that stuff. And then 2ao.org. And again, for everybody who has a concern about my position on gun rights, I get it. Like, I understand a lot of things I said. Gunrights.info, it's all spelled out. Like, there's not really a question. It's my name on it, Second Amendment organization on it, gunrights.info. That's where Rob stands on gun rights information. You have another question, post it publicly, I'll answer it, right? The idea that who I vote for matters, right, is something that's a distraction, right? And that's why I don't ever comment on it. So I think that's really important. So gunrights.info is the place to go, even though it's not my personal page. It's under 2AO. I run 2AO. That's where it is. And are you going to hit the rest of the super chats? Because there's one I have to talk. Mark, I know I owe you $1. It's sitting in my truck. It's in an envelope. I got to send it.
Okay, let me read the super chats, then we out of here. Let me see what this is. Blah, blah, blah. Hey, guys. Josh, you got anything else you want to say to end? I'll get to the super chats in a second. Everybody that's mad at the super chat last minute, please beat me up. It was completely my fault. Blame it on my memory and me being new to this, not my heart. Justin, anything else?
No, I guess I would just wrap it up to say we're willing to have a conversation with anybody. We're willing to educate anybody that's interested, but I don't educate people for a living. I make ammunition for a living, and we have to do what we're good at, and if we have opportunities to educate people, we will. But at the end of the day, if I don't have time to talk to each and every person, I still have the ability to dictate who I choose to do business with. And at the end of the day, if I can change people's minds, that's great as well. And I think we are.
Fair. Absolutely. All right, y'all. Everybody be safe. Be solutionary.